Hi, this is Michael Uslan. You're listening to Batman on Film.
I'm vengeance.
I have given a name to my pain.
The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. I'm Batman.
Hello, Bat family, and welcome to this episode number 199 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor and a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all of the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow us on Twitter at BatPodNetwork. I'm Garret Grev. You can follow me on Twitter at GarrettWado and email me topics, suggestions, feedback. I say recipes. Please don't send me vegan recipes. I will get into it later. I guess you can. I'll eat one every once in a while. Maybe my wife would like it.
That's proof. That is proof.
I didn't introduce you. You stay quiet.
It doesn't matter. You mentioned that V word.
You can do that at garrett.grev at batmanonfilm.com. As always, thank you for listening. Now, 1992 was a pretty big year. Some big stuff went down that year. It was announced with George H.W. Bush and whoever was in charge at Russia at the time. I didn't include it in the notes that the Cold War was over. Bill Clinton was elected president. Cartoon Network launched in 1992. The Summer Olympics were held in Barcelona, Spain, and very big deal here in my home state, the greatest in the Union of Minnesota, the Mall of America opened. So a lot of big stuff was going on in 1992. But one of the very biggest was the fact that Batman Returns entered the theaters as one of the very most anticipated movies of the year. Batmania was still in strong effect, of course, following the smash hit of 1989's Batman, and the cultural impact was still in effect. The public was rabid for a sequel, and boy, they got a rabid one. So this is a big movie, and it's too big to discuss on my own. And of course, we know in Batman sequels, there's always multiple villains. So I brought my favorite devious pals back to the Batcave to help discuss Batman Returns for this 30th anniversary special for Batman on Film. I'm going to introduce these fellas. You know them. You've already heard one. Let's just start with this guy, right? This man is a liar. He is a rumor spreader. He's a master of dishonesty. He's a harasser of people trying to eat food that just doesn't destroy their bodies. He's a man whose work schedule makes it impossible to record with, but will also cry and whine about not being able to get on shows. Of course, he's the Italian master of smoked meats. We all know him. We all love him, even though he's a big jerk. BOF senior contributor, Peter Verra. Welcome back to the show after long absence, Peter.
I have harassed my way back to the top, and I have done what only so many have thought would ever get done, which is none. I have brought two. That's right, two Batman Return show to Batman on Film. No one thought it would ever happen to get two for one anniversary.
Right.
And all I have to say now is, wait till you see what I got for BVS.
I can't.
Just wait.
Oh boy. How many, we got? We got 4 years to the 10th anniversary. I'm going to have to spend those 4 years preparing myself.
Wait for BVS's 30th. I got big plans.
30th. Okay. Well, hey, we'll be going strong. BOF's been around a long time. It's going to be around a lot longer, especially when we keep disproving all these stereotypes about things we won't talk about and we'll only hate on. So there's going to be some good talk about old Batman Returns, especially with some of the guests that I have here. All right. Thank you, Peter. Our next guest, you know him. He bounces back and forth between multiple states in the Midwest. He's the master of Mountain Dew flavor variants, of course. He's a librarian of the Batman Book Club. He loves cereal. You know that. And I'm looking at him right now, and I'm here to tell you this guy still fills out the chest of a TeePublic podcast t-shirt better than almost anyone else I've ever seen in my whole life. He's BOF senior contributor, Ryan Lauer. Welcome back, Ryan.
Well, hey, thanks, Garrett. And I appreciate the intro. It was a lot better than Pete's.
Yeah.
So
well,
I just want Pete to think about that.
Yeah, you are a kind person to me. You've never fueled somebody with so many lies that they text me at 1 a.m. saying, "Hey man, I thought this was a joke this whole time, but I just found out you actually are a vegan. That's cool. It's just surprising." 1 a.m. Nico Caruso hits me up, and Peter lies around the clock. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yep.
Oh,
all right.
You're in denial.
All right, Lauer. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And you know what? A lot of times we max out at 3 guests, but not for Batman Returns. We need to get all 4 of the BOF senior contributors in a room to talk about this massive bad boy. So you can probably guess who this is, but he's the man with more Game Boys than you and all of your friends growing up put together. He's the curator of Super Mario Brothers movie history. He's currently working on his own version of the Eat This, Not That dessert cookbook. BOF senior contributor Ryan Haas. Welcome to the show, Mr. Sheriff.
Yay, I'm so glad to be here talking about everybody's favorite Batman movie.
Everybody's. There's never any debate on this one.
No.
Well, boys, here we are. We're in the Bat Cave. We are bathing in nostalgia.
We're bathing in Vichyssoise.
Vichyssoise.
In the sewers.
It's so cold, the Vichyssoise.
Supposed to be cold.
I thought for years, by the way, that the name of that soup was Fishy Swa.
Same.
Assumed it was a cold fish soup. And
this is why you watch movies with subtitles.
Yeah. You know, it's important to do sometime. I don't know how old I was when I discovered that, but I was certainly like not a kid anymore. I'm walking around Fishy Swa, you know, like, okay, whatever.
Can we have some of that fishy swa tonight for supper?
It's supposed to be cold. My dad would
Like,
not.
Cold fish soup. Okay.
And my dad liked a piping hot beef stew because, you know, he's not a vegan either, Peter.
I hope not. I don't know where you went wrong.
Yeah, the apple has fallen very far from the tree, Mr. Wayne. But yeah, you know, this is a huge movie. It's never really dropped out of the public conscious, certainly not out of the fanboy debate circles. And it's been 30 years. 30 years, guys. That seems mind-blowing to me. And of course, we got to recognize that with a fun look back on the movie. We're going to discuss some key points on it. We always want to hear about your first viewing experience, of course. But before we get all that, we're going to skip the news. We're not talking about current day stuff. We're going to stay back in the Wayback Machine.
So don't cue Becky.
Don't cue Becky.
Not cueing Becky today.
There's no Becky today. And that's an 89 clip. Not that I probably won't use 89 clips when I edit this thing, but we're skipping the news. That does not mean, gentlemen, we're going to skip out on the chance to play another round of America's favorite Bat-themed trivia game. What are you?
I'd like you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
All right, boys, we're doing this. I've never done this category before, but I wanted to bring it out for this one. Typically, we talk about, you know, pieces of equipment or vehicles or characters or whatever from the Batman universe. We're going to go outside that just a little bit. And we're going to talk about somebody who exists actually in our real universe. And this is an actor from a live action Batman production. You ready, boys? Of course, we know the rules. This is the game you play along at home or your car or your office, wherever you might be. Gym. I like to listen to podcasts at the gym, which is difficult sometimes because I'll be like in the middle of a lift and I'm listening to a show with Peter on it. And he starts ripping on me about carrots and broccoli. And I almost dropped the bar on my neck, kill myself because of Peter's lies.
How's your little soybean protein shake going there, Garret? How's that working out there, pal? Yep.
But I give 3 clues of standard difficulty. The goal, of course, is to guess the subject with as fewest clues as possible. And after those 3, I give a kind of a giveaway. I've been trying to make them a little bit more obvious so that everybody can be a winner because Batman's a winner. We want to be like Batman. Still, the goal is to get it with as few clues as possible. The subject for today's edition, again, is an actor in a Batman live action production. Are you gentlemen ready to begin?
Yeah, sure.
All right, clue number 1. This individual has been nominated or won all of these very prestigious awards: a Golden Globe, an Emmy, an Academy Award, and a Tony Award. What are you? No hands up. Very prestigious individual with all those nominations and wins. All right, clue number 2. This individual is of Italian descent, but no word if they are related to Peter the Liar Verra. Oh, Ryan's got a hand up. You hold still. We're, of course, on the Bat Honor system, so Ryan's not going to change his answer and be a villain here. All right, we're going to move on to 3 for the rest of the crowd. This individual is best known as an actor, but is also a major motion picture and television producer, including hits such as Pulp Fiction, Aaron Brockovich, Get Shorty, Gattaca, and Garden State. Peter has got his hand up. Haas has got his hand up. Listeners at home, here's your giveaway clue. In one of his longest running roles, this character is fond of toe knives, playing night crawlers, guns, promiscuous sex, and homemade hair dye. What are you? Of course, that's Frank Reynolds.
Getting lubed and sewing himself into couches.
Night crawlers anymore.
Ryan, you had your hand up first. Who is the actor we are discussing today?
One Sir Danny DeVito.
It is Danny DeVito. Yes. Danny DeVito, of course, who rose to fame on the hit sitcom Taxi, and then career just took off from there. Did theater before that, and actually was in motion pictures before that. But really got.
You were going to go with Walken. I thought as soon as this game started, you were going with Walken.
Walken. I was very close to doing Walken.
Should have brought in that he directed and started in Matilda. That would have been the giveaway.
Matilda, yeah, with Rhea Perlman. I think they're still married. They've been separated for a couple of years, but they said they're just never going to get actually divorced. Yeah.
Oh, huh. Okay.
Yeah, they've done that a couple times. I found
tax
out.
breaks.
Yeah, right. Something like that. Yeah, it's too much when you're
the wealthy need tax breaks.
Yeah. Yep. Triple down economics. All right. Well, let's get on to the subject at hand. Let's get to the main event.
Mr. Cobblepot, you are the coolest role model a young person could have.
And you're the hottest young person a role model could have.
All right, gentlemen. 1992. It's summer. You want to go to a blockbuster major motion picture and you're a nerd. What other thing are you going to go to besides Batman Returns? Maybe Jurassic Park, but let's say you like superheroes. Batman Returns. It had to be.
Jurassic Park was the next year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, 93. You're right.
Yeah.
Good call. Thank you.
Hate to be that guy, but
I'm going to leave it in. I'm going to leave it in. I deserve to be shamed. The accuracy should be there.
Somebody's a liar.
Well, even more so, you're just going to Batman Returns. And Ryan Lauer, I listened to an episode that you were on discussing, I think it was on your show, the comic book adaptation. And I want to let you know, you are not alone in watching Curly Sue just for the trailer. I actually liked that whole movie. I don't know, but I particularly would, the first time we rented that movie, I think I made my parents rewind it to watch that trailer about 5 times before we actually got to the main event. Boy, oh boy, was I hyped. He had all the folders, so much t-shirts with all the brightly colored neon dreams of the early 90s. It was the whole thing, man.
I had the yellow, the neon, vomit, like neon pink, orange t-shirts. Oh my gosh.
Or purple. Also, I remember purple, and I was thrilled because
mine was the bright orangey pink ones.
My dad got a purple one too, and I was just like, "Oh my god, my dad's wearing a Batman t-shirt," you know.
Yeah.
So we sort of kind of matching, I think. And actually, in '92, I got the bat symbol shaved in the back of my head. I know everybody else did it.
I was told that
prior.
didn't happen. I've heard that was a lie made up by the media, and that people weren't actually shaving bat symbols into their head.
Who the hell said that?
Yeah.
We won't name names. They're also of Italian descent. So
Peter, the same people that think Batman '89 got forgotten for
Lethal Weapon 2.
To quote one Sir Dr. Ian Malcolm, that is one big pile of shit. Because I definitely know I can.
There wasn't Lethal Weapon 2 cereal. There was Batman Returns cereal.
Yeah,
I would go get my mom's mirror and go stand in the bathroom and just wow.
Do you have a picture of it?
Oh my god, no, I don't think it ever got.
I think you've got to redo it and get a picture.
I think so.
I would love to.
You just got a fresh haircut. The canvas is ready.
I'll put it on the top. Why not?
Right,
let's just get that.
That's
okay.
I love it. I love the dedication.
I love it.
The movie was released on June 19th, 1992. It was a hit. It made money. I think the narrative has sort of changed over the years. We got to remember this thing actually was financially successful. Did not reach the highest heights of 89, but I mean, very tall order because it was such a cultural phenomenon. 163 million domestic, 134 million international, about a 267 worldwide. Take, not too shabby. And today, if you look it up, it sits at 68 score on Metacritic. So Metascore, whatever that proper terminology is. So, it's been hotly debated. It's been a little bit of a wedge issue across Bat fandom, but it made money. It was favorably reviewed. Ryan Haas, I'd love for you to kind of kick us off in our first trip down memory lane. Give me the first experience. You haven't heard this on this channel here, so it's worth revisiting. Of course, if you've listened to the Batman Book Club, you've probably heard a little bit of this. So we'll keep it a little more brief than maybe the lengthy memory jaunt on that program. Of course, you can always find that on over at BOF and on the feed for the podcast itself.
Yes. Yeah. So I experienced Batman 89 through VHS. I remember I watched it at my grandma's house a ton, and it was one of the VHS players that was old enough to where it had this little, you had to wait for the little top to open up, and you put the tape in, and it would lower it back down into the VHS. And there's something about that and the original VHS tape that had the label on it, like the printed label that said Batman on it with like the black font. And gold. Yeah, the black and gold, and later ones were cheaper. But I just remember watching Batman 89 like crazy that way. And so it ended up being Batman Returns being the first Batman movie I got to see in the theater. Was barely old enough, like too young to see it,
Sure.
I was like 5, when it came out, but I was big enough of a Batman fan.
You were fine.
Big enough of a Batman fan to want to see it. I remember going to a theater and seeing the poster with just the black and white top of the Bat logo with the words Returns on it. I remember that.
Was the snow on that one? Was that also?
No, it was just black.
That was the next one.
Yeah, it was the original one that didn't even have the date on it. It was just Returns.
Apparently that poster was not liked by Warner Brothers because they were like, you don't know what it is. And they're like,
I assure you,
your target audience was not confused.
Yeah, like I was 5 and I knew what the hell it was. I was like, oh man, there's another movie. Oh my God. I was so excited. Dad took me to it. I remember people around me knowing and reacting that it was this weird movie. This was freaking people out. But like, I loved it. I remember Dad holding his hands up to my eyes when, the makeout scene would happen and stuff like that. But other than that, I remember being very enamored with it. I got I got shirts, I got the toys, I didn't get the cereal. I saw the cereal at my cousin's house. They lived a little ways away, and they were able to get the cereal, and I didn't.
And you scammed the box from them, correct? I heard that.
I should have. No, they did get years later. They gave me the coin bank from the 89 cereal.
Sure.
So they did do that. I just remember being just so into Batman Returns, and that was the thing that like started to unlock the rest of the Batman fandom at the time, because within quick succession, you had Batman Returns that opened the door for animated series, and Batman 66 was more accessible on TV at the time. So that just cemented my love for the character, I think.
In a way, we were.
So do you remember when Returns came out, 66, going back into like syndication? It was on like what, Nick at Night or something?
For me, it was Family Channel. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
That's good. I think we had the reruns on Fox must have had the rights to it, because that's where I remember seeing it. And it had been on before 89. It just kept going. Stuff. Oh yeah, McDonald's stuff. I mean, we could do a show on the McDonald's tie-ins on its own.
I have all the cups. I've collected them over the years.
The Happy Meal toys.
The Frisbee lids, was that was Returns, right?
Yeah, it was the glow-in-the-dark Frisbee lid on the amazing.
Look at that. Peter, the listener can't see it, but Peter is showing us his cups.
I actually have one from 89.
The Taco Bell. The 89 Taco Bell.
I think what's his name? James from BOF sent me a bunch. I already had them, but like he was like, do you want these Penguin Returns cups? And I was like, yes.
The answer is always yes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Haas. Let's switch over to the other Ryan. You didn't see this one in theaters, right? I did not. You weren't until forever for a theater guy.
No, the first Batman movie I ever saw in a theater was Begins.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize this. How did I not know this?
This is horrible news. What?
I know. This is
knowing that we are really, really close in age, Lauer. That's depressing. Because I remember
Batman and Robin in theaters.
Vivid memories of Forever and Robin.
You would have had a blast of Batman and Robin. I was like, I did as a kid.
I mean, I don't know. It didn't happen. I wanted to. Lord knows I wanted to, but
just hanging out listening to John Mellencamp records all the time instead.
Duh.
It's Indiana, right?
Yeah.
Making
But
sure.
I did say Haas has already heard this. And Garrett, sounds like you listened to the episode, but I'll repeat it that I remember wasn't able to see it in the theater. We had 2 video stores in town.
Oh yes.
And it was they had the bat, the cat, and the penguin poster in the front window of the video connection. And it would always be going in to check, and they had the VHS cases. That's how you would tell if the movie was in, like they had the cases, and then there'd be a spot for tags. If there's no tags in there, that means that it's not it. So that thrill and excitement as you go running into the store to see if there's a tag, and then you see the whole lineup and there's no tags. It's like, God damn. And then it was like kind of late on a Saturday night. We were coming back through, and I was just like, can we please stop? Can we please stop? I want to see Batman Returns. And I go running in, and there was a tag. And I was just like, whatever. And exactly. And so then, of course, went home and watched it right away, in which I don't necessarily remember like my dad and brother's reactions. They sat through the whole thing. My mom left the living room. She wasn't having it. No, she thought the penguin was disgusting. I think she probably was I don't know. I'd have to ask
called
her.
McDonald's.
But I don't know. I don't know if she
wrote a letter.
I don't know what she thought. She didn't make me stop watching it though. So I mean, that's a plus, right? Maybe she's just like, oh, whatever. But I was all in on it. I loved it. I loved Penguin. I know that, and I mean this in like a good way because I'm a big horror fan, that Catwoman's debut scene scared me because of the tic-tac-toe. And that scared the hell out of me, but like in such a good way. I loved it. And I just loved the look of everything. I loved the creepy circus gang and all that. Batman standing up, obviously, at the beginning with the symbol behind him. And
Bruce rises from the chair.
I didn't have a ton of the toys. I had each one. I had Catwoman. I had Penguin. I think two of his penguins. And of course, as we all know, you're all better with the line and stuff of toy line. And what they did with Penguin and how it didn't look like Danny
Superpowers repaint, essentially Burgess Meredith.
Yeah, design. I had him, and then I did have it was the Bruce, and I think Pete, you have the shirt.
The custom coupe. Oh,
with like the
quick change.
Quick change one.
I had that,
and I think I don't know if that was the one that came with you pushed and the wings came out like in the movie.
I think that was a separate one, right?
That was a separate one. Okay, so that was kind of the max of my toys. One of my greatest Christmases ever was the next Batman movie. The Batman Forever Christmas was insane. So Returns, I didn't have a whole lot. I had Topps cards, which of course you get those and you're just constantly looking at those until you're able to actually own the movie and stuff. So that was kind of
there were two different kinds of
trading
cards. You had the Stadium series that had like the slick backs, and then you had the regular trading cards.
Oh yeah. Yep, I had the slick backs. So that's kind of my origin story with Returns.
Well,
it's pretty long, but
no, it's great. I love hearing it. It's very, very sad that I mean,
it's such a sad childhood really I had. It was terrible, really bad.
Jeez, I mean, I'm a small town boy myself. Come on.
Well, I was the only one really. I think my parents weren't totally into it. My dad, I think, was just kind of like, whatever, Batman. I don't think my mom really cared. My brother didn't care, but somehow owned every single VHS of Batman as soon as it came out. So
there you go.
They did wait and not go to the theater, but we ended up owning the movie right away when it was out to buy. So, and I was the only one really all in on it. So
it was just for you. They did love you, Ryan.
Exactly. They did, I think.
All right, Peter. You're probably, I don't know. I always think you're the biggest Returns fan of the bunch. Maybe that's not true. We can find out. But I know you're a big fan. So hit me with it. First time.
I don't remember my first time watching Batman Returns. It had to be on VHS. I do remember though, like I've said this on the social hour. Me and my brother were so terrified of Selena putting her puppets in the what's it called?
The microwave?
The blender.
Blender,
garbage disposal.
The garbage disposal. That's
it actually kind of we threw the movie out. Like we physically threw the movie in the garbage at one point. Yeah, when we were younger, we were so terrified. So like, that's why like for someone who loves it as much as I do, it's a funny story, and it's like it's
big
like
softy.
I'm almost like the reason for Batman Forever.
Right. Right.
But I love Batman. I think that's the only creepy part about the movie, though. And
I'm going to ask about if parts he thought were the most disturbing was we
to
get
be
into
honest,
the meat a little bit more.
For me, it still is that puppet scene. Like, she completely goes unhinged and she's just breaking her apartment. Like, that's it. Like, everything else after that, like, nothing else bothers me. Like, I was like, Penguin bites somebody's nose. He's talking about having sex with Catwoman. And I was like, it's really not that weird. You know, I was like, but then again, I always say this, like, Batman Forever comes out and then Nicole Kidman comes out in her lace dress and everyone's like, yes. But horny little old Oswald freaks people out.
Yeah, I also want to get into that the perviest or horniest aspects of this movie, as that's been a topic of conversation over the years too. Well, for me, I did see it in the theater. I was at summer camp. I remember the weekend that it came out. So I saw it the second weekend, which was normal for these movies. I don't think childhood pal Eric Olson listens to the show ever. Eric was like 5 years older than me, and he was my parents' good friend's oldest child, and he would get to go to the movies right away. And he was who they'd ask, like, do you think it's okay for Garret? And I think he helped get the blessing for me to see 89.
Little Garret.
Yeah. He was a little bit more liberal with his rating scale than my parents were. So I remember I went to go see this movie in the theater the second weekend. Actually, it was a weekday, and it was still packed theater in little old Brainerd, Minnesota. With my best childhood friend, Travis, and his mom, Jo, and my mom. And Travis and I were hyped. But also, I remember like shooting each other some like looks like, oh, God, this is weird. And like I remember checking for my mom's reaction to things. Like, at what point is she dragging us out of this theater? And it never happened.
Really?
Yeah, never happened. We made it through the whole thing. But I remember the car ride home, my mom being like, there was some things that were not good in that movie, Garret, and I think we should talk about, a couple of those.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What were the things she wanted to talk? Like, what were the scenes?
The level of violence, and she said, and she actually, my mom, ahead of her time, I think, talked about, the Batman that you really love doesn't hurt people the way that Batman hurt people in that movie. So sometimes things are different from the movies, but what makes a hero is how he helps people. I was like, and looking back at that, I was like, geez, Mom, I was like, really pretty heartfelt. Like, that was pretty nice. But she wasn't writing letters, she wasn't at a ladies' church meeting decrying Batman Returns or anything like that. But we did talk about the content.
So interesting.
Yeah, a little bit on the ride home. But there was a lot of good stuff in it. So let's always start, me, I'm an optimistic, positive guy. Favorite aspect of the movie can be your favorite part, favorite scene, style choice, whatever that might be. What's the thing that throughout the years has remained your favorite?
Hi, Bill Jet Ramey here from Batman on Film, the founder of this here website. Before the podcast continues, let me take a moment to talk about our sponsor, Athletic Greens. So what is this stuff? What is Athletic Greens? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, and probiotics to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of these things. AG1 is lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. AG1 contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. It also supports better sleep quality and recovery, and it supports mental clarity and alertness. So how much is this going to cost? AG1 will cost you less than $3 a day. It's cheaper than getting all your different supplements yourself. You're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/emerging. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/emerging to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Lauer, I'd love for you kicked off this one. Yeah, man, I'm gonna pick on you first. What's your favorite part of Returns?
There's something that always it's hard to just say like the first or like a number one, a solo number one. Batman coming to Gotham in the beginning. As little as it is, him driving that Batmobile while Oswald's in the archives, and you see the Batmobile pull up.
Real slow.
Yeah, and then the action scene in the middle with Batman.
Batman action's always hard to beat.
Fighting on, because I mean, and those are just
with the poodle lady.
Yeah, there's just something about both of those. It's just, I mean, the beginning and middle, Batman in action is always great, and then there's something about that him driving the Batmobile through Gotham. I mean, it's just a quiet moment and stuff, but I mean, you got him on patrol of Gotham, in the winter, and talks to Alfred on his at the time scene, was like, oh my God, that's so awesome. He's looking and talking to Alfred on a monitor in the Batmobile. And then, I can't, the end when it's just Bruce and Alfred. I love that ending, driving through, and then you see that shadow of Selena or Catwoman. And that as a kid got me like, oh my God. And then as he runs down the alley, like, I love that too. So there you go. 4.
There you go.
Can't pick one.
Lots of faves. Peter, how about you?
For me, it's everything Ozzy. Like it's from him just being thrown away as a child to just this reimagining of this flipper troll-like sewer creature. The Penguin he was just a fat guy with an umbrella until Tim Burton got his hands on him. And I love this take on the Penguin. And I think it's cool that he, you can call me sick or sadistic. I think it's a great idea that the discarded firstborn of the Cobblepotts wants to take revenge and, kidnap a bunch of kids. I'm sure that's what a villain does. He does bad things. Like, I'm sorry, I want a bad villain. And that's what Oswald does. And, he's been, locked up in the sewer forever and he bites people's nose, but it's awesome to me. And, I like the whole aspect. I like him playing on people's emotions with the family and how he uses that to kind of get sympathy to run for mayor. And it's just great. Everything about Oswald's just brilliant, in my opinion. I don't care what anybody says. Rick sucks. I don't know. Rick sucks. Oswald's great.
Can I chime in on that? Yeah, sure. I totally I
agree that
I'm
Rick
right
sucks.
There with him.
What you're agreeing with?
The Penguin stuff, because I mean, still to this day, I don't get overly excited about Penguin's the main one in this comic, or even Burgess Meredith. Of course, you did an iconic version of that character, but I mean, he kind of got on my nerves pretty quick and stuff. So yeah, DeVito stands out. If he did something interesting, that you're fully invested whenever he's on screen. Yeah. So I'm in the Peter camp here with DeVito's Penguin. I love it.
All right, we got 2 big DeVito fans. Haas, you can say how much you like DeVito, but give me something fresh, man. What's your favorite?
Yeah, okay. So to jump off that for a second, just the 1 million times I've seen this movie, it is so clear that all of the main actors in this film are giving 1,000%, and they are so committed to realizing their characters. Like, nobody's sleepwalking through this movie. They are giving everything they have, and there are some powerful performances in this.
Even Chip Shrek.
Well,
very powerful.
Sure. I'm just saying, like, the main.
He's not giving it in.
Like, I don't know. It's the performances elevate the movie, and you don't always see that in these kinds of movies. But yeah, for me, like, I would say the production design and art direction really stand out to me. It gets unfavorably compared to the legendary, Anton Furst production design for Batman '89. And yes, Bo Welch's production design for Batman Returns, it feels it feels smaller because of the fact that they were on more sound stages and they had to account for all the fake snow and all this stuff. It feels more like a set in this film, but all of the Art Deco stuff really works for me. I just love the look of this Gotham City, and I love that you get to see other versions of Batman's world interpreted through that lens that I think do get overlooked in this. Of course, in 89, you get the Batmobile and Batwing, but in this film, they didn't go so far out, but it's things you wouldn't really see in any other film. Like you see the Bat missile and the Bat ski boat, like you have a whole skiff that gets interpreted into this thing. It's so cool. And I love how that even seeps into the looks of Penguin and Catwoman and even Batman himself. I love the suit. It's my favorite Batman movie suit out of those first 4 movies is the Return suit. It's got that Art Deco, vibe through it. It looks so much more refined than the 89 version. Keaton knows how to move in the suit and work it even better. He learned a lot from the first film, and I just think it looks more like a Batman that's really got his stuff together. And
that is probably one of my favorite things is the continuation of Batman. This has always, while certainly not feeling like a direct sequel to 89 in a number of ways, you can see the progression of Batman, right? Like he's got more gadgets. They've grown, right? The Batmobile has some new tricks to it. He's got the remote controlled or autopiloted Batarang. The suits, you see a whole collection of suits on hangers. Like it just felt like this guy's
got a new glider.
Yeah, new glider, right? The boat. Like this is a Batman that's progressed from when we saw him last. And that was always cool to me as a kid. I loved it. Now, for me, looking back on it now, my favorite thing is the movie knows you might not like what it is. And I'll talk about my thoughts on that a bit later. But the movie knows exactly what it wants to be. Like very clear vision, very strong directorial voice, from the design to the performances to the overall theme. Like Burton was really in command of this thing, for better or for worse, but the stylized realization of what he wanted to do with his follow-up to Batman, like it's pretty great filmmaking. Like and I'm one of those, I can distinguish between something I don't necessarily care for. And I do like this movie. It's not one of my favorite Batman movies, but something that I don't necessarily care for, and something that I can acknowledge is like the work's really strong here. In the whole sort of idea of what this movie was and wanted to be is really well formed. That's probably my favorite or most impactful thing about the movie to me. Now, it's come up a couple times and it's been discussed before, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on Batman Returns. Has a very different feel in a number of ways from 89. Maybe let's touch on what you think the biggest differences were between the two movies. And then if you see any, like, hey, this is actually, I don't think it's that different. Here's some similarities I'd like to poke at. That's fair game too. Peter, you have a thoughtful look on your face, what makes me want to hear what's going on in that brain of yours.
I mean, to me, I always argue it feels like a sequel. It feels like, it to me, like I watched this movie and like I have no doubt that this is a sequel to 89. And it just, I don't know, the way that these guys are dressed and the way that the city looks. I think the city has evolved a little bit to the point where like Barbara Lang even took it even further in Batman Forever. Like you can see the Gothic statues and everything really take precedent in this movie, in this franchise. And I don't know, like to me, it was never an issue. Like, yeah, I mean, Anton Furst was a different guy, so he had a different vision than Bo Welsh, but it's just like, okay. It's like it's like when I hear Justin complain that Batman 89 doesn't feel like a sequel to Batman Returns or 89. I'm like, what are you kidding me? It's written by Sam Hamm. Like it's got those vibes. Certain things are different because, like, you got Quinones drawing things as opposed to like a DP. But I don't know. It all feels in line with me. Just everything. It's the overall like just tone of the films. Like it feels like 89. They feel like they just go together. Like I never got that comparison where people are like, oh, it's so different. I'm like, I guess it's just a different part of the city. I appreciate the fact that we've seen different parts. It's not stuck in front of the Monarch Theater again. Like it felt like 89 took place
You drove by that thing how many times?
Like how many times did we drive past the Monarch Theater in '89? Yeah. Like no one says anything.
There it is.
So I think
Pete.
it's like a complaint because people just like digging. Like I'm gonna find problems with Batman Returns. Anyone's got black goo.
I wish everybody could see the face that goes with that voice right there. That's
like,
what it's
I told
about.
you this movie birthed Karens and like, oh, it's sensitive. And like, I know as a kid I threw the movie out, but it's like I've grown up and I like appreciate like, oh man, this is such an amazing Elseworld sale. That's what it is.
I love that you pinpointed that on when there's complaints and people can have criticisms, that's fine. But complaints of returns is so small or whatever. And yeah, exactly. It's like 89 went by the Monarch Theater every fourth shot. Like, you know, everything seemed like it was in that area by the Monarch Theater. So, I mean, if that's a criticism, it's like, well, then I don't know. I don't think
Gotham City's just a small city.
Yeah.
I always wondered how much, a lot of Returns is set. More of Returns is set at night, I feel like, than 89 was. It feels like almost everything is nighttime and dark. And if just that feel, we know it had more soundstage work, right? It was one of the last big blockbusters to kind of be filmed in that old fashioned Hollywood way. But if just, the dark night sky made things feel a bit more small and oppressive because you didn't have the giant matte paintings that went, forever.
See, to me, it feels
sunlight.
larger because they're fighting on the rooftops. I can see the skyline, Penguin's umbrella helicoptering up this tall building.
Sure.
Like, the Ice Princess falls from the top of a skyscraper. Like, Gotham never feels small to me in Batman Returns. Maybe your opinion is small because it makes no sense because you're just complaining. But Gotham City is vast. Like you see, like you just look at it, like you're constantly looking almost down from the city.
Yeah, there's a lot of height. There's a lot of height in it. For what maybe it makes up for not having as much urban sprawl. It makes up for in a lot of height.
Think about it. There's a lot of scenes in Batman Returns that take place on rooftops or jumping from rooftops or people falling from rooftops.
Arguably the greatest scene in the movie takes place on the rooftop.
Yeah. They definitely tried to expand what Batman could do in the world that is given to him, So I always thought that was a really cool way to do it, and they expanded his gadgets in a smart way. They didn't go so crazy, but everything that they added on had a purpose, with the napalm or the instead of that's interestingly like the grappling gun evolution is really cool because that was really iconic in 89, but in this one they ended up using it more as a rappel line, and I thought that, those little evolutions were really cool, and Keaton just plays it off so well. Like, yep, this is a new thing, we're doing it, and of course who could forget Alfred's DJ skill.
You're right. Yeah. Just scratching away. Any other thoughts? For me, when I think about differences, Peter, you talked about it. Gotham feels different. We didn't really see as many of the enormous oversized statues in 89, but that's become a hallmark of Gotham, right? Like, if anything, that makes it feel a little bit more Gotham-y. It feels much cleaner to me. This is it's not nearly as grimy, but of course, as Peter, you also mentioned, the art production duties had shifted. But otherwise, it doesn't thematically, it doesn't feel that much different, right? Like the inn to Bruce is fairly similar, and you see it even more with Selina in this one, is the dichotomy and dual nature and personalities. And, Bruce talking about in 89, how, you get up and you have breakfast and you go to work and you feel like that's kind of Selina in Return. So I think there's more through lines than people really realize, but it does have a different feel. I don't know that it's a negative or a positive, but it feels different.
Piggybacking off of that,
I mean, Begins felt different from Dark Knight.
100%. Yeah,
so
100%.
It happens in movies.
Well, I think so. Two things for me. I guess I just never, kind of as Pete said, maybe this is like a different section of Gotham than what we saw in 89. I think that's just kind of how I interpreted that of, Gotham's huge. This is a different part of Gotham. But I think like now in watching it, Burton I think what stands out to me is Burton's different techniques he got to use in Returns, more his style. Like, look at stuff he did in Edward Scissorhands just 2 years prior, and how much of that kind of carries over, a lot of aesthetics and stuff like that, and the coloring and stuff. And second is how I don't want to say it's mislabeled as being so much darker than the first.
That's a good thing to bring up.
There's a difference in its contrast, and everything is black against white in Returns all over the
Joker's
place. And
killing everybody with a smile, so it's different.
And all the black is shiny. I mean, look at Selena walking around the Catwoman suit.
High polish,
like,
a lot of glare.
Yes, it's so polished and black. But then, Pete, I think you talked about this with Bill on the Social Hour episode of kind of like, no, the movie's actually like funny. There's a lot of kind of like dark humor spread throughout in all.
There's dark humor and there's penguins with rockets strapped on their backs.
Yeah,
too,
and
then
like
absurdist humor.
And so it's just, I think a lot of the complaints and criticisms are just, they just saw a frame of it and it looks really dark and black and shadowy. And it's very German expressionistic throughout the whole damn thing. And that whole, yes, literally that looks dark, but in context, it's like, I don't think it's as dark as apparent, a lot of people would like to argue that it is.
Well, let's go with that a little bit more, because that's been a big argument and topic of conversation over the years, this being a dark movie, aesthetically, whatever. But I think, more so around disturbing content within the movie. I think whether you agree it's too disturbing for Batman or think that's a ridiculous thing to say and question whether is such thing. I'd like to hear if there was a disturbing part or a portion of the film that you look back on and say like, oh, that's maybe the most disturbing thing or grotesque thing. What would that be in your opinion? Peter, since you're all about it, does anything stand out as like, yeah, that really did hit? You mentioned
just her mental breakdown. Her mental breakdown. That's it. Like everything else, like I don't know, like having the penguin bite some guy's nose really isn't that big of a deal. Like I'm sorry, I mean, not when in the first movie the Joker hand buzzers a guy like a fried egg.
They love frying people in these first two movies.
Also like, and I said this with Bill. There's no way that guy in the beginning, the fire breathing devil, the guy's wearing a fireproof suit. There's no way he's walking around with a blowtorch and not prepared. If for him to catch on fire.
You think Batman knew?
He's like,
that guy's got a fire.
I just think that guy just knew how to do his job and stop, drop, and roll in the snow. Don't be an idiot.
Penguin didn't hire any fools.
Yeah,
no, obviously. I mean,
these guys all had their head on pretty straight.
He put a machine gun in like a crank music player. Like the guy's a genius. Let's be honest. He's Oswald. He's you flush it, he flaunts it. He's got it all planned out. I don't even know what we were originally talking about.
Disturbing or grotesque, disturbing the mental breakdown.
I think it's her mental breakdown. I think that's it. Like, I guess if you want to say her getting eaten by the cats can be disturbing, sure. But I think outside of that, I really don't think anything is really that bad. And, coming from, I would still take my young kid to see a Batman movie like this. Like, I don't know. I'm also very like relaxed. I don't have kids, but if I did, Batman Returns would not be the movie I wouldn't take him to see.
Well, Haas, you do have a kid.
True.
Maybe give me as a kid, and then maybe thinking as a parent now, anything that stands out as
good
grotesque
or bad
disturbing. Yeah,
well,
right.
yeah. I mean, so as a kid,
you're pretty permissive. So I don't know where you take us on this.
I am. Well, I remember as a kid the Selena's transformation scene where she torches the apartment really felt emotionally like, oh, this is intense. But my sister at the time was very disturbed with the cats eating the fingers because it is so real. You see a lot of today. We have a lot.
I think it was real. I think they were really good.
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot more CG type stuff and a lot more communal acceptance of it's just a movie. But man, you got cats eating fingers, and there's blood and the eye twitch and all that stuff. I remember that really freaking out my sister at the time. I introduced my daughter to this movie when she was really young, and I had a Batman Returns poster like up on the wall, and she was very used to seeing that, and she requested to watch it many times, when she was two and a half. And she would watch it like every day. And she just, that was just Batman to her. But now I think she's understanding things a little bit better. And now I think some things are kind of freaking her out a little bit.
Yeah.
Things that didn't scare her before scare her now.
It's funny how that happens.
It's pretty funny. Yeah.
Man, the cats chomping on the fingers when I was a kid. I looked away every single time. Like when Selena's eyes flutter, that was like my eyes looking away from the screen because the cat's chomping on those digits where it was pretty intense for old little Garret. But Lauer, what did little Ryan think back in the day, and what do you think now? Does anything stand out as particularly grotesque or disturbing?
Disturbing a little bit, just because I think it feels a little visceral, and that's not a complaint. That's just how it felt seeing it. Definitely the tic-tac-toe face. And then also Penguin, biting the nose. I'm not breaking any new ground. Like you guys have kind of talked about them already. But hits. It's almost like those two, you could cringe because you could almost feel like if that happens to you or something, and I just kind of feel somebody, I can pinch the top of my nose right now and I'm like, oh man, that hurt. Yeah. I can poke myself in the eye and be like, yeah, that would hurt. Now imagine that those are sharp claws.
Yeah.
But in no regard do I sit here and watch and be like, you know what? Was that really necessary? Was that really necessary to be in the movie?
You guys, you leave it up to me to be the uptight one. I know how it goes.
Once you start to question that, how much? Well, then you start questioning every single thing in a movie. Then it's like, I don't know. Do we need Fishy Swan in the movie? Do we need DJ Alfred in the movie?
Yes.
Did you need the Batmobile to strip pieces so that it can squeeze through a building when he could have just turned right here instead? Or you know what I mean? Like all that stuff. It's like, well, just enjoy. Did it work for you or not? And it worked for me because it felt like, oh shit, Selena, like she has no F's left to give. Hey, Penguin, that's
Penguin eating a raw fish. That was always disturbing, and it just felt like.
So
when he
slurps
like that,
really?
That's gross.
That scene for me was always like, come on, Max, you don't want to dress this guy. I mean, you're bringing him downstairs to meet the whole staff. You're going to bring him down.
He pooped
his onesie, didn't he? He pooped his onesie. That's pretty nasty.
So and then, what was it, like 4 years ago? Kim Kardashian wore the same outfit to like a red carpet.
And of course,
that should be the thing next year.
Groundbreaking.
This year she rented.
They all wear a poopy onesie.
Yes, like. First, she rented Marilyn Manson's dress. Next year, she's renting Danny.
She's wearing Danny DeVito's hand-me-down.
But then get someone like Seth Rogen.
Black goo.
Someone like Seth Rogen vacuumed up inside a Catwoman suit. Because why not?
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's like that's why I love like the NECA 1/4 scale or whatever it is, action figures. Maybe it's like 1/6. I don't know. Whatever the big scale is. It's like the 12-inch figure of DeVito in that leotard, and it's like, oh god, it's amazing.
Speaking of,
it's a 1/6 scale for everybody else. It's a 1/4 scale for DeVito.
Yeah, you might remember this, Hoss. That Christmas was a good one because I got a Raphael from the first Ninja Turtles and a Batman from Batman Returns. My first
Ultimate,
tall Batman,
the big boys.
Ultimate.
I'm sure I've shown you guys I had a picture of what I got that Christmas, and it is like the Batman Returns.
The Hoss Hall.
There's like a Gotham City. I don't know if I've been looking for it, but I know y'all. Yeah. I know I've seen it before.
I want to see it.
Deep dive Batman and the sleeping bag and like the crazy.
I didn't
Gotham
go crazy
City.
for some reason. I didn't get like Batman 89, Batman Returns.
I wish.
Stuff.
Gotham City Chase, like RC car set, like it was nuts. It was so many. And there was like a tracing set. There was so much Batman Returns stuff.
I had a fair bit too. As for me, when I think about disturbing things, I mentioned the cats chomping on the fingers. DeVito in the onesie was always just like
amazing,
just grotesque and disturbing to me, and intentionally, right? Like that's what they're going for. This isn't a criticism.
Yeah,
mission accomplished, Tim.
Yeah,
because you get just like it's so dirty. Like this guy
can't move without grunting. Everything.
Yeah, he's been wearing it for decades.
I love him in his suit.
He's so big, like the prosthetics, like the fat suit, the bodysuit they had him underneath, and the way the onesie tugs on it, and he's got like it's like
he's so lumpy,
but he's got like old man flat butt with a giant gut in front and big like love handles. It's just like, oh man, they really
and just that, like the freak angle of the prosthetics for the hands, legit flipper hands. That
the French flipper trick.
Too.
I mean, he's the master.
Well, Ryan, great segue. Thank you. French flipper trick. If the thing that people talk right about after this one being violent or disturbing or grotesque is how sexual in nature it is.
Scented or unscented?
Yeah, I mean, we could do a show just on the innuendos throughout this movie, but it is, watched it a billion times, rewatched it last night, just to kind of prime the pump.
Watching it now.
And I was like, I'm really gonna watch out for this and see if it lives up to the reputation about just how sexual it is. Because when you think about it, you can point out this thing, that thing, that thing. It's pervasive. This is the horniest Batman movie. This is pervier than Forever.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is. In my opinion, this is
Black Rubber.
Okay, it's just Nicole Kidman in Forever though. This thing's horny the whole time across like all sorts of different characters. They're all perved up. Which is fine. I'm not saying that's a terrible thing, but Peter, since you don't think
this sounds like when
all right, here you guys go. Let's do this.
Porn and Homecoming. Like,
oh yeah, no. So I want to hear. Perviest part of the movie, in your opinion, Peter. You go since you're
honestly just a pussy I've been looking for.
Oh my gosh, they really put it on Front Street on that one.
Yeah, I mean, but outside of that, like everything else is just over your head, like it's supposed to be. It's nothing. I'm sure SpongeBob has done worse.
Well,
I can't believe what SpongeBob.
I don't know. I don't think SpongeBob, I don't think SpongeBob is going to be making their kids ask, "Hey, mommy, what does unlimited poontang mean?" Yeah. Well, it was over my head enough to ask, but if I was able to decipher that, I probably would have asked.
Unlimited poontang.
Also in that same scene in which I never got, and he's like, I'd like to fill her void, I don't right over my head.
Yeah, right, like which one's worse, unlimited poontang or I'm of a mind to make?
Not the sexualness, but another one that went way over my head was in the graveyard when he said I was their number one son, they treated me like number two.
I was waiting. I was going to bring that up too.
Oh, okay. They're just talking about
thank you, Daniel Waters.
If they had a second son, that he's second fiddle. I wasn't saying second fiddle.
No, because they threw
he's second fiddle, and then it wasn't until later on I'm like, they treated me like shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Like my poopy onesie. They treated me like that.
I actually asked that of my mom. I'm like, Mom, because I was their firstborn son, and my brother was the secondborn, and I'm like, Mom, why this is do other people treat their second born kids like way worse than the first? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, Penguin says I was their son, they treat me like number two. And she's like, oh no, that's not what they mean.
Oh, honey.
What do they mean? And she's just like, change the subject. I'm like, she could have just said poop. Like, come on.
Yeah. We'll know what poop is.
Yeah. That's code word for poop.
Yeah.
Okay. Haas, previous part. What do you got?
Unlimited poontang. That whole scene, starting with, it's just like that whole scene in the campaign office feels like should not even be in the movie. It's like, what movie? Just show that in itself. Like when they promoted the movie, be like, we're on the Tonight Show, and here's a clip from Batman Returns. Like, show that and be like, what the hell happened?
What?
It's like,
Nicole Kidman.
She's like, and then he's biting people's noses, and then
that's not
unlimited
pervy.
Poontang.
Filling void,
I like to fill her void, like unlimited poontang.
Nicole Kidman in a nightie on top of police headquarters, grabbing Batman's pecs is the most sexual thing a 14-year-old boy can
I'm telling you, Returns has it the whole time though, because along with that scene, Haas, you're talking about and you're the hottest young person or role model could ever.
It's a button and
he rubs it. He's like really shoving it into her
button.
chest, right? But for me, like when I'm like, oh my gosh, even Selena, like mousy Selena, when she gets the voicemail after coming back to her apartment and needing to go back to get the files ready, there's a voicemail on her voicemail machine, and actually it's Tim Burton. He's like, Selena, I can't go out of town. Our trip.
I never made that connection. Is that him?
That's Burton.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow.
Says I need to be my own person and not an appendage. Like, and then she's like, some appendage, right? Like even Selena's getting in on the perviness. Like,
I don't know. I think that's a Garret Grev Midwest stretch right there.
What other appendage is she talking about, Peter?
I don't know, Garret, but I think you're still kind of
come on.
A figure of speech.
For penis. She's saying it. She's using him as a. What happened there.
Needs to be a disclaimer at the beginning of this. This episode is going to be very.
Said
right.
Penis, pussy, and poopy.
Oh my gosh, this is way. My boys are not going to listen to this.
The three P's.
Yeah.
The three
no,
P's.
I was listening to the BYO podcast in the car, and my July 4th family road trip.
I know.
I'm
You guys went a little far with the
It's
poopy.
darker than
okay?
most episodes of the.
You know,
BF
I'll get a message. I will get a message. I've
This
gotten
is what
messages.
happens when Peter gets Batman Returns stuff on Batman on Film. Bill,
This is why Pete's not allowed on the podcast. He's the fourth P. Three P's are too much.
I have gotten direct messages before
From Karen.
when a couple naughty words have slipped out that said like, love the show, really great. Just a heads up, most of the time I think it's safe to listen to the BOF show with my kids in the car, but there's a couple language things. Maybe you should mark it when
Are they
it's
blaming
not.
me for this?
No, normally it's Lauer. Lauer says says
Okay.
the SH word. And
I try to be pretty fair.
Yeah.
Man,
and to be fair, that's in a PG movie. Like I'm not too worried about that. We're not dropping
Shit.
F-bombs here at BOF.
Shit.
That's not what the F stands for.
There you go.
I mean, my parents let me watch like season 1 of Sopranos with them. So like,
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
think of that though. How much cussing was actually in Returns?
I don't think there's any real actual swears.
yeah, I don't think so. There's definitely more in Zack Snyder's Justice
B
League.
word. It's a B word in there.
Life's a bitch now.
Yeah, and so am I. Yep.
Oh,
yep.
Life's a bitch, no so mine.
Bitch isn't a bad word. It's actually, it's kind of a dog.
Yeah, it's regular.
I mean, it'd be true, but in context, it'd be considered like, oh, there's the cuss word, which
Yeah,
I
it would
get it, but
count.
yeah, I don't think that there's that much.
I mean, it's a curse if you're a Karen.
Yeah.
I mean, I could say that about a lot of things in this movie.
Yeah. You know, it's funny watching this and with having an eye out for the sexual content in it. I was actually pretty surprised because I always think of the what is she called? The Ice Princess as being like very sexual. It was actually a pretty modest outfit by today's standards for like, you know, it's like very furry. It doesn't really expose. There's not a ton of cleavage. Like the bikini bottom's fairly low cut. It's not even.
And it's also in how she moves and stuff too. It's like she's like a like a rockette or something.
Yeah,
it's not
like a spokes model or
it's
whatever.
Like I never got much like
but that's like kind of funny that they held back on that.
Mommy,
part.
Daddy, what are these feelings? You know, sort of deal with that.
If you go to like boxing or UFC, like the ring girl shows more.
Oh, way more. Yeah. Just emerging desires of a young Garret Grev were stirred far more by Catwoman in Batman 66 than they were by the Ice Princess.
Goodness, yeah.
That skin tight suit. We don't want to go down that rabbit hole. All right. So we talked about disturbing nature, sexual content. The next one is violent. This is called a violent movie. In your opinion, are the critiques around the violence in this movie warranted, Ryan Lauer?
I think it's only because people when I say grisly with the tic-tac-toe and biting the nose, like that's different than like quote unquote fun violence because it almost feels a little bit more visceral. But those are like the only two moments. And they're just, I mean, it's what do you want to say? It's God, what's the expression? Easy fruit. I don't know, whatever the fruit,
low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit. That's what people go to. Because I mean, you watch shit now and it's a lot more violent than
there's that word again.
That and stuff.
Yeah,
so
man.
yeah, you know
Such
what? It's me. It's not Pete. It's me. I don't think it's warranted. I think it's something to say though for the like we just said there's not really much cussing, but the movie definitely got a PG-13. So there's something just in the vibe of the movie. I think
the tone,
so
for sure.
The tone
it's definitely a PG-13
I don't
movie.
think it's
I can't doubt
too
that.
I just don't think there's is it the most violent Batman movie?
No.
Like period.
No.
Definitely not.
No. I know what Peter's going to say, so let's go to Haas. Warranted, fair in parts, not on the whole.
I would think it's fair in parts, but that's what the ratings are for, you know?
Yeah.
So, but you know, it's easy. Especially think of the time Batman Returns came out in 1992. It's a definite easy target for people to jump on because it is Batman. It is a character that had been around since 1939. The general public was just in the infancy of getting over. Of course, obviously, Batman 89 helped a lot, but the general public getting over this whole like it's like Batman 66. It's fun fight, you know, fun and light and all this, and it's in a way bringing the more 80s serious, you know, comic book stuff. Frank Miller type, you know, comic book industry changes to the big screen. So it's definitely an easy target for that kind of stuff. And there are definitely other movies in made around that same time that you could point to that have similar levels of violence that don't get as much scrutiny. But because Batman's a hero and it's trying to straddle that line between, everybody can see Batman,
Right.
But yeah, and the Tim Burton, and it's darker and all that. A lot of these keywords, buzzwords and everything. Plus just the movie does not, I think it all wrapped into that. It comes to this point of the movie feeling like an artistic expression. It does not feel like this manufactured thing to sell Happy Meals and toys and stuff. And that still happens. But when you watch the movie, it's Tim Burton's movie.
Yeah,
and
I always thought
see it on that level is pretty shocking for people.
Yeah, I always thought
it's so Clowian of you right there. By the way.
Oh yeah, very enlightened.
A student of the Professor Clow.
Yeah,
right there, Ryan Haas.
A learned gentleman,
an associate producer of Chris Clow.
I know Peter is only going to be concerned about violence against puppets, but if there's any other thought about like, hey, that was
I don't think the movie's overly violent. I actually think it's appropriately rated. I mean, should you probably be like, I don't know, 8 to 10 years old as a kid seeing this movie? Yeah, I mean,
it's a good floor.
But would I take like, I don't know, my 6-year-old? Yeah, I probably would. If I was a father, just because it's like, I want them to enjoy Batman like I do. And like, I'm pretty sure there's no sex scene in the film. So like, for me, that's kind of like, I'm not as strict as Garrett. I'm like,
no, six is tough. 6 is tough. I definitely watch stuff with
6 is good, but it's also
6 is good. 6 is good. 6 is tough because that's where they actually start to pick up on stuff. And like kind of the Haas's comments earlier, there was definitely things I watched with my boys when they were little that I wouldn't watch with them now, just because they don't have any concept of what's going on. Right.
My girl turns 5 next week, and she's already to the asking questions in movies point, like, what does this mean? Why does that happen? And I'm starting to be like, I can't just show her everything now.
I know. Yeah, Michael's been doing that with me for a while. He's he's the inquisitive one of the boys. More.
How old is he?
Michael's 9. He'll turn 10 in August.
Okay.
So he's getting ready. Like I'm opening the floodgates for like PG-13 content for him now. So he's hyped. He hasn't seen.
So can he watch things that his brothers can't?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's great. Wow. Oh, he must torment the hell out of his.
Oh man, we watched so many Avengers movies.
He makes
and
Ben
Marvel
cry.
Movies. Oh yeah, let's know. Benny gets all.
Benny gets bent out of shape, doesn't he?
Benny boy thinks he's a big boy, so
he will be. Benny, I can't.
Oh yeah, he's early.
I'm gonna go to college. Back to college when that kid goes to college.
He's a wild man. He is the party man of the Grev
Live in a
boys.
dorm with him.
Yeah.
Like you ever see that movie Dead Man on Campus? Like that's gonna be like Benny.
Right. Yeah. It's of all the violent stuff, I think where I know Michael, when he starts watching this last movie, it'll be Batman. It'll be Batman putting a bomb on somebody and putting him down in a manhole, or lighting somebody up with the Batmobile. He'll just, and it won't be like clutching his pearls, but he'll definitely notice that and have conversations. That's the only thing for me.
Has
Michael
watched 89?
No, not yet. We're doing it. Actually, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do a camp out night in the basement.
Is this like a big thing for him?
Oh yeah,
like to finally watch 89 with Dad. Hyped. It's just the two of you.
Yeah.
Wow, just okay. Dad's
the
oldest.
But you know what? Christian will probably be able to join. Christian's 7. So
okay,
listeners, now you've got the full update on. Well, not Lucas is 2, just to round out the whole crew. Now you got the full update on all the
my offensive line of children.
Yeah.
Well, I was to say, like, man, I'm hitting Michael, Christian, Ben. And then Luke. Okay, yeah. I was feeling a pattern here, but
no, there was
been Adam.
Yeah, I tried Adam. I tried George. Robert was circling. It hadn't been confirmed at the time. I tried, and my wife said,
some Eric stuff.
My wife said, "You're not naming anymore. You're not sneaking any more of your nerd stuff with my kids' names," because she figured it out after the first 3. And I was like, okay. And so when we were having a real conversation, she's like, I think I really like Luke, but with Grev, it's a short last name. I feel like we need 2 syllables. And I'm like, we could go Lucas. And she's like, yeah, that sounds good. I'm like, she doesn't know anything about Star Wars. I'm getting a 2-for-1 on nerd stuff.
Nerd.
Right. Man. All right, boys, let's start wrapping this one up. Great conversations. Looking back, it's been 30 years. What would you say? And I don't need to go in order. Open discussion. What's the legacy of Batman Returns 30 years past its release?
that when a studio gives a filmmaker the leeway and trust, even if it's not a film that's going to please everybody, it's going to stand the test of time in some way. And there's other films that you can show good examples and bad examples of.
They'll be memorable.
But they will be memorable. And it's really cool at the end of the day that we have examples, at this point, many examples of Batman movies. And I think keeping that approach for Batman is always going to produce longer lasting results that keep the character alive in smarter ways than just, churning out another week at the old, comic book movie factory.
Yeah, man, I think that's a really good point, Haas. And I think, there's things that studios can do that they didn't do with Returns to help sort of mitigate some of that impact where it can cut the wrong way. And it's like, have a consistent messaging with your marketing. Think about your tie-ins and your merchandising. Have something else. I think we see this a lot now where there's, a Batman major motion picture, and for a long stretch, basically since And Robin came out, none of these Batman movies have been targeted towards the younger demographic. But when they're in theaters, when they're about to be a big thing, when it's about to be a big impact on the culture, there's a accompanying animated series or something most of the time that's pointed at a little bit younger, and you can tie the merchandise to that. It doesn't have to be the more adult fare that's on the big screen. I think you're right. It's going to make an impact. It's going to be memorable when you let a director loose, for sure, one way or the other.
I think that the movie is actually aged well. By it being, I think 89 was kind of timeless. I think Returns is very timeless also. And I think there's such a benefit in that of 30 years later, you can watch it and you're not like, oh my God, that's so outdated. That's so bad. Oh, that's so bad. Or you know what I mean?
Right. Bat signal is not a beeper.
It's exactly
right.
I think that it did age well. And I think that people are more kind to it now than at the time as well.
Yeah. There was a stretch there where I think it was really vilified.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've started to outgrow that a little bit.
Yeah. And I like the movie. You can see a still of it and you're like, oh, that's Returns.
Oh,
how many artists would love that of their work is known by a small snippet and you're like, oh, I know what that is. Like, it stands out. It's just it's not a part of an assembly line, just like the thing before it and after it. It stands out as its own. And I think that to me was prime Tim Burton. And so I still love it. It's not it's not in the top 5 of my favorite Batman movies. It's around 6 or 7, but it's definitely one of them that I can put on at any time.
Yeah, it's not up there for me. It's actually probably one of my lowest ranked Batman movies. But I think,
I love it. I should say that too.
Oh yeah, you love it.
It's not up there, but I love it.
I don't love it. I don't love it as a Batman movie. So for me, it was one of the first movies that I saw, and I could say, and when I was a kid, I liked it way more than I like it as adult, by the way. Like, I thought it was better than 89 when I saw it as a kid. Yeah. Oh, wow. I was like, this is incredible. I love it. But I said the same thing about Forever. When Forever came out, I thought it was the best Batman movie. When Batman and Robin came out, I did not say that. I did not say it. But I think now it's one of the first movies that I can look at and say, I can love all of these elements and look at it as a piece of art that can be appreciated and thought highly of, while not just loving it as a piece of entertainment for, I say that while having watched this hundreds of times. So take that for what it's worth. That's its legacy for me. Peter, how about you?
I think time's been very good to Batman Returns. I think a lot of things have happened since Batman Returns. Obviously, it's been 30 years. We've gotten various incarnations of Batman. I think that gives us a chance to look at the film differently. And now that DC and Warner Brothers are really exploring this multiverse, I think you can really,
oh boy,
kind of look at these films and realize, that there's always another Batman. There's always another story to tell somewhere out there. Because now we're on. Oh geez, I've lost track. Like it's like what, 8? We're on our 8th Batman, right? Our 7th version of the character, like 2 versions. Well, it depends. Like, you could say what version is one version of the character and what version is another. But to me, it's just, I remember a time when it was vilified and now it's not. And, a lot of people have really kind of loosened their stance on it. Like even Bill had a hard time saying he still hated the movie. So
that's saying something too.
And it does, and again, that's the power of Nolan and that's the power of Reeves. Like, they've allowed people to kind of, it's not the last thing in the world. So you don't have to hate the previous incarnation. And, you've got so many other versions. It's just like a comic book at this point. If you don't like Batman Returns, well, then there's the Dark Knight. If you don't like, Paul Dini's Batman, well, there's Grant Morrison's, or and that's what makes this character so special. Is, and all these characters in this medium is that they have the ability to be retold so many different times that they're still fresh. None of these versions of Batman seems like the other, no matter what some guy wants to say on Twitter. They all feel different.
And I think, Peter, it's just super. I think that's a really great point. And the more iterations we get, the more live action productions we get of this, less each of these things need to be thought of as the definitive thing. And I need to have strong feelings about it, as opposed to, kind of what you're saying, just another version, just another slice. If this isn't for you, hey, guess what?
Unfortunately, with movies, you got to wait a little bit longer to kind of wait it out,
Yeah, for sure. And back then you had to wait even longer.
Yeah.
All right, boys. Any other final thoughts before we kind of wrap up this discussion of 1992's Batman Returns and give you all a chance to plug your other offerings to the listeners?
Just
shout out.
Oh, okay.
Shout out to Chip Shrek.
We did not talk a lot of Chip.
I was going to say, how great is, we were talking like how when Haas was going on and how every actor's giving their all.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned Chip. I was serious because that guy does an amazing impression of Christopher Walken.
Impression.
Yeah, like it's like, can you imagine going in for this role? Like, well, what do I do? It's like, just impersonate Chris Walken.
Yeah,
you're his son.
Yeah,
this
was my first
go save yourself
movie. Yeah, and my gosh, that guy's a tour de force.
He's great.
I think it might have been mine too.
Your charisma's bigger than both of us.
I should have said one of the most disturbing things before we move off Walken. Sorry, Lauer. One of the most disturbing things for me is Walken's pronunciation of whether it's bottles or baubles.
It's
I still am not
baubles.
It's like a Christmas decoration. It's a thing.
I know what a bauble is, but like it's not pronounced like that.
Baubles. This is why you watch movies with subtitles, aka why Rick sucks, because he makes fun of me for it.
All right, Flower. Sorry to interrupt.
This was said a little bit on when between me and Haas and our pal Justin Kowalski for the Returns comic adaptation. We'd come across things where reports that Keaton actually slashed dialogue from this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and that could sound kind of crazy, but as we see some panels in the comic adaptation of stuff that Batman and Bruce says, and especially as Batman. And if that was actually in the script and he vowed for them to cut that, I think that's like applaud him. Not because anything was like terrible. It's just, I think what he was going for that, his version of Batman, it just worked a lot better for him to speak with his eyes and his movements more than like literal words.
Yeah, he does it masterfully. I think it's a good call. Except Paul Rudd showed up. He said, do less.
Hi, Bill Jet Ramey, founder of Batman on Film. Let me take just a moment to talk about our sponsor, Libsyn. Do you have an idea for a great new podcast? You can bring your idea to life and start your podcast today with Libsyn. Our podcast, the BOF podcast, all the shows have been on Libsyn for over a decade, and we love it. Libsyn has everything you need to plan, launch, and grow your own podcast. Libsyn provides some of the best resources created by expert podcasters who will show you everything you need to know, like what equipment you should use, how to record a great audio, how to get your show on Apple Podcasts and other popular platforms, and much more. Plus, as a friend of Batman on Film, when you sign up with Libsyn, you get your first month of podcast hosting free. There has never been a better time than right now for you to start podcasting. Visit Libsyn.com and use the code FRIEND, FRIEND. That's LIBSYN.com and use the code FRIEND, FRIEND, to get started and create your podcast today.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining as always. It's always more fun in the Batcave when I'm not down here by myself. That would be not very fun for the listeners either. I'm sure they'd love to hear more of you. Mr. Lauer, be so kind. Give him your plug, sir.
There's a lot of me.
All right.
On Batman on Film, you can check out my reviews for comics. Most recently, Batman Beyond the White Knight, #4. And coming up next week is a new team takes over the Baned Batman title of Chip Zdarsky and Jorge Jimenez. I've read the issue. Yeah, you definitely should read, and I'll write the review up there. Also follow my podcast, The Batman Book Club, wherever you get your podcasts. Bill also posts every new episode on Batman on Film, but if you want to follow it, you can on Twitter at the Batman BC. Most recent episode of that is with my pal Peter Verra right here, where we did a monthly wrap up of June comics. The episode before that had Mr. Haas as a guest, where we talked about the Batman Returns comic adaptation.
Yeah, and Peter spreads more lies and disinformation in the latest episode, as I just listened to yesterday. So we're going to wait for Peter. He'll probably try to lie even more on his way out. Haas, hit me with the truth.
Yeah, I was thinking, I was like, I don't have anything to plug, but then I actually put some thought into it and remembered that I'm actually on a couple of shows. Like Lauer mentioned, I'm on Batman Book Club talking more Batman Returns. If you can't get enough Batman Returns, look way back in this feed. Probably have to go to YouTube to find it, but a few years ago we did do a Batman Returns anniversary commentary. And it's what? Me, Pete, Clow, and Shoe?
Dick Shoes.
Oh my goodness.
That's a cast of characters.
Lots of ducks, baby.
Yeah, and there's 2 people that love the movie and 2 people that do not love the movie on that.
And Chris Clow is a wonderful guest.
That's the first duck reference of this episode.
I say ding, ding, ding. #1 duck, right as we're wrapping up. Peter wanted to keep that mic line open. I made my threats.
Also, Haas, you plug what you most recently did.
I was going to say.
Yeah, and I did, me and Clow did 2 episodes on the BOF satellite show covering the Obi-Wan Kenobi limited series on Disney Plus. And it's just me and Clow, but we have a lot of
that's all you need.
That's all you need, yes. And it's a good nuanced discussion, and boy howdy, Star Wars discourse is such a pain in the ass these days.
I'm so glad I'm not a Star Wars
fan. Hashtag Eric stuff.
Yes, exactly. So if you want like good, level-headed, and actual discussion that's just not a bunch of junk, check out the BOF satellite show.
And there's a lot of junk out there. So if you want to listen to good shows,
goodness.
we're probably the only one out there.
Yeah, we got our satellite shows kind of on fire lately. I said fire. We've got a bunch of shows about the Elvis movie that Bill's been doing, and we've got Star Wars covered also. So
The Fire Rises. Yeah. It was great. I love both those episodes. Thanks for doing those. It's fun, especially me. I love Star Wars. I love Batman. It's nice to be able to right on the same feed, get a little dose of Star Wars. I know Peter doesn't appreciate it, but Peter appreciates and does a whole bunch of other stuff. So let's hear it.
I appreciate Star Wars. Star Wars stinks. You can follow me on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Zack Snyder's favorite platform, Vero, at Pete Illustrated. You can follow podcast #1. That's a news-based podcast, Straight Outta Gotham, that I co-host with the champion of Long Island, Eric Holzman, at straight_O_G. Check out our Facebook group and our Facebook fan page. You can follow podcast #2, the Italian Spider-Man Coalition podcast that I co-host with the champions, or actually the monsters of the Midway, the wonderful dynamic duo of Chicago of Nico and Nicholas Caruso, just a couple of Italians talking Spider-Man. That's at Italians for Spidey. Follow at Team Yellow Oval as we celebrate the return of the Oval on print and the big screen. Keaton's back in Batman 89. The Oval's back in Detective and Batman, and whatever happens in Batgirl, who knows? You could follow me on BatmanOnFilm.com and Batman on Film YouTube. I got reviews of comic books and toy reviews and interviews and all that stuff over there. So check me out over there. And everything I've said about Garret is 100% true. The guy only eats vegetables and leaves, and he wants to hide it. And he shows you pictures of his wife's dinner, who eats steak, potatoes, and ribs daily. Christine is a god, and Garret is just a little boy living in her house.
Oh my goodness. I can only disagree with that so much, I guess. She is a force of nature. But I mean, I cook delicious steaks. I am out on the grill all the time. I'll you can see pictures. We can talk about my recipes.
Right out of the frame is the Impossible Burger, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can't see is like Garrett's got a nice big bowl of escarole soup.
Whatever. If you would like to talk to me about the meats that I cook and eat myself, or any other thing from fantasy football to Batman to He-Man,
you gave us a whole screenshot of like, look at my freezer, it's full of meat. Like,
full of meat.
There's a whole meat freezer.
Full of meat. This is how I keep Christine pedestrian happy.
Yes, you.
He eats more meat than a T-Rex.
To all my kids that we've discussed on this show, you can do that over on my Twitter handle. Follow me at Garret Wato. That is at GarretWato. If you want to keep getting all the latest news and updates, when we get new articles popping, new episodes dropping, you can do that at the Batman on Film News Twitter account. That is at the Batman on Film, all one word. If there's anything you'd like to hear about, send me complaints about Ryan Lauer's salty language. Send me your support around how to deal with Peter's misinformation campaign. Whatever you'd like to do, reviews of the show, all that's great. You can do that at garret.grev at batmanonfilm.com. That's GARRET.GREV at batman-on-film.com. And remember, it's not who you are underneath. It's what you do that defines you. And you are the hottest listener a podcast host could ever have. Thank you for listening. Until next time.
In the duck.
You have been listening to the official podcast of the one and only Batman on Film website. On Twitter, follow BOF at Batman on Film and the Batman Podcast Network at BatPod Network. For Jet and everyone at Batman on Film, I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening to the authoritative, definitive, the original Batman on Film.